I would want you to talk about this, how we are one of the best FDI destinations right now in the world.
So, well, I think, where would FDI money go? I mean, where would an investor put its money? Where it could get a return. Now, where it would get a return in business, where there are consumers, and as a matter of fact, I think for most of
where the growth is fast.
Where the growth is fast, and India grows for two reasons. One, that it can provide services, it can provide goods now, and we'll talk about manufacturing, but it could provide services, and second, it could consume. Because of these two reasons, so where a country where you have the production capability, service provision capability, and consumption is the place where you would invest. That's why everybody went to China in the first phase of growth, because along with these three things, they had a third very strong point, which was a stable governance. They had a very strong government, irrespective of how good or bad they were to their own people. But it was a strong government from a business perspective.
Stable, predictable, understandable.
Government, pro-business government, who would go out of their way to make sure that businesses are comfortable, whether or not the people working in those businesses. There was this one story, some client of mine was telling me that he went to China to, procure certain goods from a factory. He used to buy something for his factory in India. And in that factory, so there was a, the labor used to sleep in the factory. They were not supposed to go home to, even their houses. So they had sleeping place in the factory. They would live, sleep, do everything in the factory. The washroom for like 500,000 people was as small as like a 2 square feet where you can take a bath, you can do whatever you want to do. So it was, that kind of conditions, but China allowed that. I mean, until a point in time, and we'll talk about issues with manufacturing in India. Of course, I'm not suggesting that that's the route we need to take, and we cannot take it, given that we are a democracy. We want our people's welfare to be paramount. But that's, I think, those China policies.
But you have to be globally competitive, so you have to find ways to be globally competitive.
Yeah, I mean, it's becoming difficult for China to compete now, because, with wealth that China generated in all these years, which also trickled down to its people, change the aspirations with respect to lifestyle, and that is now also leading to a big problem that China is facing. I think the biggest threat to China are two things. Now they're changing demographics. The people, one, old population, related to that is the more wealthy population, and the third biggest threat that China is facing is information. Now, controlling information is not as easy as it used to be for China a few years back, when it would just stop all the press. Everything, the world is not known to you. You don't know how nice it is to be on a yacht in the sea. Now you can watch it on, some sort of a video on this thing, and that changes aspirations of people. So that's the biggest threat that China is facing. Now India has all of those benefits. The only thing it lacked for the longest period of time was a stable government, a pro-business government. And when I say stable government, yes, we always had a comfortable transition of power from government to government, and that's where
policy was not certain.
But policy was not certain. So we are far better than all of the South Asian countries. Pakistan had multiple occasions of their constitutional failure. So did Bangladesh. So did Sri Lanka. The judges were arrested and military regimes came in. In India,
Myanmar, Maldives, everybody.
Everywhere. We didn't have that situation. So we had a very strong constitution made by the founders of our constitution, which has held us through. But the business policies were up and down, if and but. And that is what has led to a relatively slow growth. But now I think there is more focus on business. I think one, that government is doing things, and government is always a function of the will of the people, and therefore it's really a reflection of the will of the people. That people are now focused on these factors more than anything else, and that is why I think there is so much of emphasis and push for growth of businesses in the country. So yes, the opportunity is huge, because we have all the factors that China did, because of which China became what it became. And the factor where we were lacking is improving, and that is an obvious reason why we are growing, and we will continue to grow in the near future.
Yeah. So for example, if you want to invest in Japan, right? It's a good big economy, very stable, rich people, but growth opportunities are very few. Like the growth is like 1%. So Japanese people themselves cannot. They have a choice. They can invest in Japan and grow very slowly, or they can invest outside Japan. Now this happens in US. US on the other hand is there are very fast growing businesses in US, but if you go to France or if you go to UK, and there are very few companies which grow very fast. So they have a challenge that where to deploy capital. You have wealth, but wealth, if you keep it idle, it will diminish in value, right? So how are you going to reinvest this? Where are you going to invest this? You need to go to places where there is fast growth. That place was China for many years, 20, 30 years it was China, right? Now India is becoming the next destination for FDI, and it has become, right? It has, I think our FDI inflow has already surpassed China's recently in this year. And this year although it's a peculiar year for China, but generally speaking, we have been attracting massively growing amount of FDI year on year growing. So, and this trend is only supposed to get bigger, not slow down, but get bigger. And that goes in line with our young population, fast growing middle class. This middle class thing is very interesting, right? So India has a very small middle class. It's a big middle class globally speaking, but it is very small percentage of Indians. Very few families fall into the middle class category. Now this will grow in a huge way in the next 10 years. So if you know that why is Uber, Amazon, Flipkart, Walmart, why do they keep losing money every year in India? What is the interest? Have you thought about this? Why would Zomato or Swiggy keep making losses year on year, and their idiot investors keep giving more money? What is the reason? Does it matter? Do you think it sometimes like what is crazy with these people? They keep spending on like Byju's. A lot of people say that, my God, they 5,000 crore loss. Somebody gave them this money and allowed them to spend this money. Are they all idiots?
They look for the longer potential.
What is the longer potential? How come Amazon makes losses of 5,000, 10,000 crores year on year, and they are like fine? Why? They are
Building a
habit among people, but for what? So actually the biggest why they are doing this is because today Indian middle class is small, right? And they're like, we are first mover, we have taken the market share, whatever, 50%, 60%, whatever percentage, right? 30%. And we know that currently, if we raise the prices, we can make profits. Okay? Maybe we'll lose a little bit of market share, but somebody else may come and give discounts and take market share away from me. I don't want that to happen right now, because Indian market is the biggest market in the future. 10 years down the line, when our middle class will be 5x. So there is no market in the world which can grow 500% in 10 years. Okay? So the money they are sinking right now, they are going to get it back later, and they have the capital. They don't mind a 10-year horizon to get it back, right? So they're playing for the pole position, and they're also preventing entry of other players in the market.
I think that what we were talking about outside, I think most investors are today looking at not what the revenues of the businesses are, and that's what we see now. If you
and that makes sense in the face of this huge growth.
Yeah, stable businesses who are making profits are typically valued when you do deals as a X of an EBITDA. What is an EBITDA? Multiplied by a certain X. But none of these companies have an EBITDA. I mean, this is so. There, I think the valuations really arise from something called an addressable market. What is the addressable market you're looking at, and therefore what is the potential for growth? And that's how the valuations are done. Backward valuations, thinking of what you will be several years down the line. So that's how most startups today arrive at valuations and how investments.
And these are not startups. They are already addressed the entire market, nothing left. Many of their the market calculations, what they thought is the market didn't turn out to be true. The market turned out to be smaller. But they still keep spending money like that every year. And they're okay with it. How come their shareholders, how come Walmart shareholders are okay with that? How come Amazon shareholders are okay with that in the US? Very important thing to think about. So you have to realize that they are also expecting this kind of outsized return going forward from Indian market, which should give you more confidence in India right now.